All right, so I get a lot of people, so does Honey Baby, they always say, how you make that roast potatoes, Kurt? Calm down. Gonna show you. Calm down. So, I love roasted potatoes and carrots, as does most people, as do most people. What I've got is I've got this pot going, and it's pretty hot. You can see the smoke off of it already. And that pot has about 2 tablespoons of oil in it. This is just a chuck roast, just a regular old chuck roast. I've got some flour. This will probably take you about a half a cup of flour or something like that. Just kind of rub it down both sides. And that's all I really want to do on that part of this roast is just cover it in flour, get a good little coating on both sides. Then I'm going to put it in this pot with this oil in it. And of course I managed to get flour everywhere, so let me clean up a little bit of that real quick so I don't further the mess by getting it everywhere else. The next thing is, boy, I managed to really get that everywhere. The next thing is I'll cut up these potatoes and carrots. There's old Honey Baby. The thing that I do with this roast when I'm doing a roast is I never ever put the carrots and the potatoes in while the roast is starting. I think they get way too mushy when you do that, so I like to put these in about with about an hour left, and I'll talk about that time here in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and cut them up though, so they'll all be done, and I like to cut these carrots into coins. This is probably a little thick, but that's about 3/4 of an inch, something like that. The potatoes, I like to keep pretty big too. If you're doing these in like the crock pot or something like that, you have to almost put them in to begin with because you're doing that obviously because you're going to work or something like that. But if you're doing this roast in the oven, you don't have to put these in early. I wouldn't put them in. Again, I think they just get too soft and mushy. So anyway, I'm cutting these, same thing. These are going to be in cubes about 3/4 of an inch, something like that. You can hear that roast going over there behind me. So I hate those videos where they just sit there and they just cut the whole time and that's all you see. So I'm going to move on even though I've got a couple more to cut. I will go ahead and put the onion in when I start this in the oven. You know, it reminds me, I need to turn the oven on. 300 degrees. I always do my roast at 300. Matter of fact, do the corned beef briskets the same way. And I like doing it in this pot because then I'm not dirtying up the skillet and then dirtying up a pot as well. Pot or a baking dish or whatever. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do this onion. Got Sarah's little vegetable cleaver here, and this sucker boy is all business. I'm telling you, if you want to chop some vegetables, you need to get yourself one of those. Man, that's all business. Lastly, I have, of course I got a little wine there too, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Will you flip that for me? Mm-hmm. So I've got a jar here of pickled cauliflower. Now you could use jalapenos if you wanted that to be a little spicier. You could use dill pickles, whatever. Just don't go with a sweet brand. You want the dill brand. These cauliflower I would not have to chop up if I didn't want to, but I will for this. But notice I'm saving that brand. I've got a little wine here. This is, I think it was quite rich. Is it not brown? All right. Oh yeah, it's good and brown. So just brown it on one side. I'll show you this real quick. You can see that color. Ooh, that's beautiful. Now, when you add this wine, go ahead and pour that in there. You'll see this kind of get a little crazy here. Well, that's about a 1/4 of a cup. That's probably not enough. Is there no more in there? That's probably not enough. Here, try that with this. That was a cab. This is a Malbec, little chalkboard Malbec. That's good. By the way, if anybody's ever sitting at home and like, hey, that's a good dude right there, I'm like, get him something. Always remember Moment. My favorite wine. So basically, you're just going to cook that down until that cooks out. Then we're going to throw in this brine off of this cauliflower. And I'll probably go ahead and put this cauliflower in there with it. Now again, all this is just a dill brine. So if you have something else that you'd rather use for your dill brine, use it. The nice thing about this is the next day, if there's any of this roast left, you can make like Italian sandwiches, or you can do all kinds of stuff with this roast, and you don't just have to, I am tired of roast potato carrots. You don't have to. You can make a sandwich or whatever with it, and that dill brine gives us a lot of flavor for that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to overly salt this, because it's pretty easy to get this too salty at this stage. I put a little bit of salt in there. Hit that with a little pepper. That wine's almost totally cooked out of that now. Bay leaves. I want about 3 bay leaves in this. Be sure you don't burn that wine in there either, because if you do, it's going to add a bad flavor to this. So we've got our brine. This is going to be about probably 1.5 cups of the brine. We pour that in there. And then add enough water that you're about halfway up on, well, halfway up on yourself, but you can also bring it halfway up on the roast. You want that to be about halfway up on that roast. So then I've got my onions and my cauliflower here. I'm going to go ahead and drop those in. You want to bring that over here? Kind of see what this looks like. It kind of looks like roast with onions and cauliflower. But anyway, and you've got that brine in there. You got your oven on 300. This is going to end up taking about 2.5 hours for this roast. And this roast was, I'm guessing, about 3 pounds, 2.5, 3 pounds. So what we'll do on this oven is bring this back to a boil. And then I'll put the lid on it and I'll put it in the oven. In 1.5 hours, I'm going to add the potatoes that I just chopped up and the carrots that I just chopped up to it. Give it about another hour. Make sure your potatoes and carrots get good and soft. And then it will pull apart and be ready to serve. So I'll put this lid on there, but that's how we do our roasting potatoes and carrots. And they are fantastic when you do that. So we'll post up a picture when we're done, what the end result looks like. All right, that's back to